Welcome to Beadaful Designs by Donna's channel. In this video, I will show you how I turned a 22-year-old ballet dancer into an old lady for ABT's production of the Nutcracker, performed at the Segerstrom Center for the Performing Arts in Costa Mesa, California. This is Courtney Sheely. She's one of the corps de ballet dancers, and she'll be dancing the grandma role in the first act of the ballet. Now, the first thing I do for her old age stage makeup application is I like to apply the foundation. I used 2 different colors of cream foundation, and I showed it to you on my metal palette. And I like to apply my foundation with a foundation brush and not a sponge. However you can, if that's your technique. So it doesn't really matter, but I'm showing you how I use a foundation brush. Now what I'm doing is I have those 2 different colors, which is kind of a light color and a medium tone color. And I'm kind of mixing it together on the palette to create her color. In some areas she's a little darker, so then what I do is I use the medium color in the areas where her skin's a little more darker, and then if I want to highlight the center of her face, I use more of the lighter color. And I'm just kind of lightly blending it in. It doesn't really have to be really heavy. I'm getting like under the eyes, as you can see there, and just feathering out everything. And I'm bringing it down along the jawline and the neck. Now, some people probably like to know, does it matter what particular brand of makeup to use when you're doing stage makeup? It doesn't really matter too much as long as the end result is what you want. I usually tend to use professional products because it has more pigment in the color and I don't have to work as hard to achieve what I want to do. And I'm even like applying the foundation even on her eyes because I'm going to be doing some character lines on her eyes, so she needs a base. And you can see I'm blending along the jawline. Now that her foundation is complete, it's time to add the wrinkles. Now this is my highlight and shading palette. Those are the colors that I use. I use the dark brown and I use the lightest color for the highlight. Now, what I usually like to do is to start from the jawline and work my way up. So right now I'm creating the jowls, and I'm using kind of a larger flat brush to create the jowls, and I'm kind of creating a C line along the jawline. It kind of goes up, as you can see, and it basically stops at the corner of the mouth, if you see that. And then I take where it went up, I again take it and make another little C along the chin. So that creates the jowls. And then I'm going back in and adding a little bit more detail with a medium flat thinner brush, and that I can control more because when you have a bigger brush it covers more area and it's really good for blending, but I want to kind of get in there and create those lines, as you can see right there at the corner there, how I'm creating that little jowl effect there. And I'm using that bigger brush to blend it down because I'm blending it down to the neck. Now, if you're probably wondering why I'm using powders instead of creams, well, for 2 reasons. 1, it's easy to come off, and 2, it doesn't really need to stay, her makeup doesn't need to last all through the entire show. She's only on the first act, so it just makes it a lot easier. Plus, also, it is faster to apply, I find. So now, as you can see, I'm creating her cheekbones. Now, I'm doing the contour and I'm using that detailed brush. And if you start the line upper where your ear is, and then you follow your cheekbone and you kind of follow it and you go all the way down. And I'm actually extending it past where you would normally stop if you're going to do a normal contour. It's almost like you're creating the shadow of the skull. If you ever looked at a skull and you can see how the cheekbones are, the way the bones are shaped, you're almost creating that. See how the line goes, and if you actually continue the line, it would actually go down all the way down and meet at where that little C is created for the jowls. So that's kind of how far it goes down. And also I'm shading the temples. You can see how it indented a little bit, and so that's what I'm doing right there. So that's the basic shading of the face, and then I'm going to go back in and highlight those areas to actually bring it out a little bit more. You can see how it's kind of shaped like that. Now, some people like to highlight first and then shade, or in my case I like to shade first and then highlight. So it doesn't really matter how or when you stop. It's as long as you achieve what you want. And also, I like to do shading first on certain features and then go back and highlight and then continue. So you'll see that. But then some people just like to, again, shade all at once and then go back, highlight all at once. It doesn't really matter, but this is my technique. So now I'm just taking the highlight shade, it's a lighter cream shade, and I'm going right above the line of the shading line that I created in the jowls. And that will just give it that fleshy look. And don't be afraid to really pile it on, because what happens with highlight, it always starts like sinking into the skin. And especially with a stage, you need to really see that. And also the thing about stage makeup is that it depends on how big the theater is. The bigger the stage, the more intense your makeup can be. And smaller the stage, the more intimate it is. You don't need to be really crazy with all the heavy lines. You need to blend a little bit more. So that's something that you have to consider when you're doing stage makeup. And in the Segerstrom, it's a large house, so I can go get away with it. But it also may look like I have a lot of makeup, but actually she'll look like she's not wearing much on stage. So you lose a lot of the detail when you are dealing with a big theater. So as you can see right here, I'm highlighting those areas now. And now I'm going back into shading, and what I'm doing is I'm shading along the nose and right in the corners of the eye socket there, because I want to sink it in. It's almost the opposite of what you would normally do when you're doing eyeshadow. And I'm using that flat brush, and I'm kind of blending. I don't want to see a harsh line, I just want to see shadow. Now the face is basically done with the highlight and shading part. Now it's time to add the detail wrinkles. And I usually like to start around the mouth area first. So I'm going to draw in the nasolabial folds. Those are those lines around the mouth there. So what I do is you start at the top where where your nostrils are, and then you kind of go down all the way down to the corner of your mouth. And you want to taper that line out. It's a lot thicker, more intense color at the base of the nostrils than it is around the mouth. And then what I do with the mouth is at the top of your bow of your lip, there's that little divot you have. I like to take a little shading in there. And then for the bottom, I like to draw a line, a shading line along the bottom part of your lip, and then take the corner of your mouth and draw some lines going down, almost like you're creating a frown. And then finally, I take that medium-sized flat brush that I use to do the detail on the jowl line. Well, I actually take that under the lip line and I kind of brush it to the area to create kind of a chin. Like it's basically it's between the bottom of your lip and the top of your chin. That's kind of where I shade it. And you can see right there. You see how you can see that shade under the lip? Now I'm going to go back into highlight. So I'm taking my highlight along the cheekbones, and then I'm going to actually go back and then highlight basically all those character lines that I've created so far. I like to highlight on the bridge of the nose, a little bit of the nostril area. Once I get that area, then I like to work around the eyes. So I'm going to kind of create those frown lines. If you see her make that facial expression, it's because I need to find her own natural wrinkles. She doesn't have any, and when you're working with someone who doesn't have any, it's hard to create them. And you just don't want to just put them in anywhere, because you need to create those lines to match the old person's own natural lines when they eventually get them. So if you make facial expressions to create those lines, then you can color it in with the dark shading color, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So you can see I did that with her forehead. when she lifts her forehead, her eyebrow area. And once I do that, then I go back over with the highlight to bring it out even more, as you can see. I like to highlight right above the eyebrow area because it really makes the eyebrow protrude. It also makes the sockets of the eyes look even darker, so I like to do that. So now I'm going to actually create the eyes to make them look really droopy now. You can't really see there, but I'm taking the shading brush and I'm really working it in to the corners of the eye there, and I'm blending it, because you know how I created those furrowed brow lines? If you just did that, you'll see this line. So what we want to do is the bottom part, we want to blend it in into the socket. So we don't want to see lines stop and starting. Everything needs to blend in together. Even though it's for stage, you still want it to kind of blend together. You just don't want to stop and start. And at this point, I'm creating the bags under the eyes now. And at this point, you kind of like look at the socket area and you can kind of see where her skin will start forming a wrinkle. And of course, if you do it on an older person, it's already starting, so it's very easy to add it. And now this point, I'm going to create her brow bone, the sagging brow bone. So what I do is I take that detail brush and I start at the corner of the socket. I follow the brow bone all the way down the shape of her eyelid, and I go down and I pass her eye and I just kind of bring it down so it makes it look really droopy. Again, it's totally opposite than what you would normally do if you were going to apply eyeshadow. Can you see the difference now, how she looks a little more tired? And I'm just going back in and I'm just blending it a little bit. I'm intensifying the line. It's more intensified in the inner socket area than the outer when it comes to the shading. And I also have a blue-black color in my palette. What I have done is I've gone over that brown area and just to intensify it a little bit more. So that's what I've also done, along with the nasolabial fold and the eyebrow. And once I get all that shading done, it's time for highlight. And this is where you can really go for it. I did. I especially wanted to have it really highlighted, or a lot of color, or let's say lack of color, on the brow area, because I want that brow to be really droopy. Once I've done those lines, I do like to add a little color to the eyelid itself. This makeup, I want the character to not look like she's wearing makeup, so I'm not adding any eyeshadow to her lid. I'm just adding a very neutral middle color for her eyelid. It has some color, but it doesn't look like she's got eye makeup on. It won't read like she has eye makeup. It will just read on stage that she just has no makeup. With that, I used kind of a highlighting, fluffy highlight brush. Again, whatever brush you like to use when you apply eyeshadow, go ahead for that. It's not really specific for that. I decided to go back over some of the areas that I did shade earlier, and I felt that it was not as intense as I wanted to. So don't be afraid to do that. Once you put the makeup on and if you're done and then you look at it and go, oh no, I got to add a little bit more, go ahead. Because a lot of times, the skin kind of eats it up a little bit. Now that the eyes have all the wrinkles, I'm now going to go over her eyebrows. The only change I'm going to make with them is just to make it look a little grayer. I didn't want to change the shape of her eyebrows because it was a character choice. The color that I used, it was one of those character powder colors, and it was just kind of a medium color gray that I used over her brows that would just soften it a little bit. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm just blending the eyebrow color into the corners of the eye to complete this step. And the next step is going to be applying the eyeliner. But before we do that, this is what she looks like up close. So the next step is going to be applying the eyeliner. The eyeliner I like to use is MAC, the gel liner. This is it right there, and the color is a deep dark brown. I don't know the name they give it, but just use a deep dark brown color. Now to apply it, you can apply it the same way as you would with a normal gel eyeliner, how you start from the inner corner of the eye and you blend it out to the outer corner of the eye. But where it differs is that instead of kind of lifting up the line, you're actually going to take the line and you're going to make a little flick down. So because of doing that, it brings the eye down. So just think of doing the opposite that you would normally do with an eyeliner. Once I finish the bottom liner, it's time to do the top. Again, you start just like you would normally start with lining the eyes at the corner of the eye. And what I do is I start at the corner of the eye and I bring it across, get as close as possible to the lash line. And once it gets to the outer corner of the eye, instead of flicking it up, you'd actually draw a line down. This will give it that droopy look. Can you see how tired she looks now? Look at that. And I'm just kind of adding a little bit more. If your liner stops and starts, don't be afraid to go back over it and smooth out the line. Now that I've done those eyes, it's time to add color. And I've got my blush palette here, and her character is very rosy and sunny, and I wanted to add color to her face. So I'm using that bubblegum pink color for her cheeks. And where I'm going to put the blush is actually at the apples of her cheeks. So I actually have her smile. It's easy for me to find it. because I want to give her that little, grandma rosiness type of look. And so I just kind of apply it there and a little flick it up. And a little trick is if you want to make sure that your blush is even, I like to stand behind them and look at the mirror, the reflection, and you see what I'm doing right here? And I can kind of see if it's even. Because what you see directly on the face sometimes doesn't read what you see in the mirror, and basically you want to see what, it helps you better to look at the makeup through the mirror. And what I did is, what makeup's left on that blush brush, I'm kind of going across like the cheeks, the chin, the eyelids, the forehead, and it just kind of like warms her up, gives her some life to her makeup. And the final step there is the lips. So I'm actually using those two pinks. I'm creating a color because one was too bright, one was not bright enough. And I basically, what I do is I line the lips with a neutral lip liner. Basically, when I say neutral, it's kind of the color of her own lips, and I kind of line it in. Now, again, this is a character choice. I'm kind of giving her little, like, Cupid sort of shaped lips. Courtney has fuller lips, but I didn't want to use those full lips, so I'm kind of making them more fuller in the center and not so full at the corners of the mouth. And that's, again, it's a character design choice. So I line the lips first, and I kind of blend in the lip liner first, and then I go back and add the lipstick with the brush. Now I like to work with my palette knife, because my palette knife's really wide, so I usually use that because it's just easier. But you can put it on a regular palette and work from that. It doesn't really matter. And when I do my lips, I always like to work with the bottom lip first, fill that in, and then do the top lip. And I like to have their mouth slightly closed, not all the way open and not like closed smack together. I like it gently closed so that I can actually see the full shape of the lip. That's how I like to apply lipstick. And there you go. There is my grandma. Doesn't she look cute? So the final step is applying the wig. Now I know this isn't part of the makeup tutorial, but I wanted to show this because this really makes her makeup all come together. And what you see right there I'm putting on, it's called a wig cap. It's basically like a nylon cap that you put on over the hair, because I prepped her hair in pin curls to make it nice and flat. So what you put that over the hair, and I'm just getting the hair tucked all underneath with the tail of my brush there, and then I'm using dressing pins to kind of secure the wig cap onto the head to make sure it's secure. And then I'm going to apply the wig. You see how she has come together now? Isn't that really interesting? How the wig and the makeup all work together. I just only wish that you guys could see her in costume, but unfortunately she never comes back into the makeup room after I do her makeup. And what I'm right now doing is I'm just securing the wig to her wig cap to make it so that it won't fall off when she's on stage. Oh, I have one more thing to add to this tutorial. I forgot to mention it in the beginning of the video. Somehow that step got edited out, so you didn't even get a chance to see it. It was in the beginning, after I applied the foundation and before I apply the highlight and shading colors. What happened is that I set the foundation with a powder, and the product that I use is RCMA's No Color Powder, and I basically applied it with a large powder brush and just a light dusting of it. So that is what I do before I started the character lines. I would like to thank you for watching this video, and I hope you found this informative. And in this video, I wanted to share with you my techniques on how I achieved an old age stage makeup instead of just promoting products I used. So if you would like to learn a little bit more about stage makeup or even beauty makeup, you can. You're in luck, because you know what? I'm now teaching virtual makeup lessons. So you just go to my website and you can check out all the details of my classes, and I will put the link to my website in the description box. Ta-da! Here is Courtney as Grandma, the final look. Isn't she cute? And this is what she would normally looks like when she performs for ABT. And there she is now. Thank you for watching.